Now, Richard, in your capacity as a Germanicist, what are you listening for particularly in the performance of Lieder? Do you have an internal checklist?
No, absolutely not. Gut reaction is much more important than any sort of checklist. Nor is pronunciation the be-all and end-all. I mean, some people think it is, and they get their knickers in a twist if if the Mädchen doesn't sound right. But you look at all the great singers, from Schwarzkopf to McCormack, they all pronounce vowels in different ways. And it seems to me that it doesn't actually really matter. I better rephrase that. It does matter, but it's not the end of the world if you get a vowel sound wrong or don't support the consonants quite as you would expect. Much more important is the feeling that the singer understands the poem, understands the syntax of the poem. You can have wonderful singers, wonderful voices, who speak like parrots and can actually pronounce the German correctly, but you know that something is wrong. It's just fudged. You know, the subordinate clause word order is just slightly wrongly stressed, and so on. Much more important is whether they get hold of the poem and whether they can convey that, whether they can move you, actually.
Yeah.
I think checklists are very dodgy.
Fine. Fine. How much weight do you put on the interplay between voice and piano?
Very important. After all, this is a lead recital as a duo, and sometimes you get wonderful pianists, wonderful virtuoso pianists. They don't know how to support a voice, they're too busy showing off their own pianism. And sometimes you get rather clunky pianists who are actually much better pianists for a leader recital because they support the voice.
But sometimes you get wonderful singers who don't really listen to their pianists.
No,
I mean, that one works
yeah,
both ways.
Of course it does, yeah.
And I think back to Eric Sam's immortal dictum that what people, by and large, don't understand is that the Lied is a keyboard art form.
That's very good.
Do you have sympathy with that
Very
view?
much, yeah. Repertoire choice, yes, please, please, please. Don't just go for Gretchen am Spinnrade, Der Wanderer, Schmidt von Lübeck. Try the other Der Wanderer, Schlegel. It's just as wonderful a song. You run the risk if you try and perform, pianists and singers out there, if you try and perform pop boilers, you name them, Auf der Brücke, Du bist die Ruhe, all these very famous songs, just limited to Schubert at the moment. You run the risk of trying to do something which is actually impossible. The jurors will have ringing in their ears all sorts of performances by other people. It's much better in my view.
Or indeed themselves.
Or themselves, yes. Very good point. And if you're singing Strauss, please don't just do Alle Seelen and Zueignung. They're the most wonderful songs like im Spätboot, the Ophelia-Lieder. Just explore. Yep. And go for unknown songs like the wonderful Benjamin Godard song, the chanson de Florian, d'Estelle. Little things that are really not done very much that are wonderful. They might be miniatures. Hinkende Jamben, for example, Löwe. And balance it. Don't just do serious songs. Let us see that you have a bit of humour. And don't overdo the humour. So in Hinkende Jamben, you don't have to sort of do a limp at the end of it. You can limp with your voice. Don't show off your voice for the sake of showing it off. Don't show us your decibels. Relate to text. Don't be frightened of taking risks. Really important to do so. Don't be too tidy.
Can you expand on that?
Well,
don't go for neatness for its own sake.
The whole business of Werktreue, fidelity to a composer's markings.
Hang on, what are we saying here?
What we're saying that if everybody attended to that, there would be performances pretty much the same. What I think is fascinating is if you listen to recordings, say, of songs like Nacht und Träume, which is Think mag sehr langsam.
Yeah.
I once did this as an experiment. I mean, sometimes it takes a minute and a half, sometimes it takes 2.5 minutes. Take risks, interpret the text in a personal way. If Du bist die Ruhe is marked very slowly, don't feel you have to sing it very slowly. If technically you can't do it, you can still give the impression of singing slowly simply by weight and other things. So take risks. Don't be a very good boy or a girl and do exactly as the composer says, ipso facto. You don't have to do that. There are other ways of doing it. Be true to the text and the music, much more important in my view.
It's a controversial one.